Good morning, everybody. Dorothy here from CCMA. You're all very welcome. We're just going to give a couple of minutes. I can see people joining as I speak. So we're expecting about over 20 odd people this morning, which is great. Maybe even a few more. So just waiting for a few more to log in. Hope everybody's doing well. So just give me 1 or 2 minutes and then we'll kick off. And just to say on screen for those joining, we have Cormac Farrelly of WSI, who is our main man on the technology side for all of these webinars. So has been a great help for all setup and organisation, and obviously Alison Creed, who will be presenting this morning's webinar. So everybody looking bright.
Well, thank you, Dorothy.
We were just saying that we think the hairs are going to be getting longer over the next few weeks for all of us. But anyway, we'll hopefully get through it all going well. So I'll give it to 11:02 if that's okay with everybody. And just as you're logging in, can I just ask you to type a message in the you'll see the chat box over on the right-hand side of your screen, just to let me know that you can hear okay and you can see okay and you can see the presentation. Just a thumbs up, whatever suits you, that'd be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Dorothy, can you share where people are from, if you have any?
Yeah, I'm going to do that actually. Yeah, I'll give it 1 more minute, Alison, and then okay. I'll actually get that, which would be great. Okay. Yeah, no, we've actually a really good mixture this morning. So thanks. As I say, if everybody as you're logging in, we're just over 20 now. Just in the little chat box to the right, just give me a thumbs up or let me know that you can hear and see okay. That'd be fantastic. Okay, so I'm gonna kick off if that's okay. Welcome, good morning everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dorothy from CCMA, so you're all more than welcome this morning. This is our second in our community chat series, which will be a series that we're going to continue over the coming weeks. I suppose just to bring events and these type of sessions to members to help us work together and to let everybody know that we're here and we're here to help. And we know everybody's experiencing similar challenging times in terms of, setting up remote working and all the challenges that have been incurred by companies in the last couple of weeks. And we know some people have been doing this for a while, so we're hoping we can all help and support and learn from each other. And that's what we'll be doing in these webinars. So just to give you an idea of who's on today and who's joined us, to let you know the spread of companies. We have colleagues from Abtran, Avantcard, AXA, Cognizant, CPL, Irish Rail, Irish Water, Live Tiles, Pobble, New Ireland, SSE, Sun Life, Virgin Media, VHI, Workhuman and Zynga, to name just a few. So absolutely delighted to welcome everybody, and as I say, I hope you're all doing okay. So as I mentioned the other day, we had a bit of a technical glitch with our first one of these, but the good news is we got to record it afterwards, and it is available on our website. If you go onto the events page and scroll down to previous events, you'll see the webinar, which was a mindfulness meditation with Maurice Whelan. That was lovely, actually. He really did a lovely job. So if you get a spare half hour in the next few days, I'd certainly recommend you logging in and downloading that and taking part in it. It was really lovely. So we're going to continue with these webinars. We're going to do 2 a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. The time proposed is 11 a.m. and we'll be recording them. We want to spread them as much as possible, so they'll be available for you to share. They're obviously all absolutely free. Members, non-members, all of your colleagues, contacts that you think might get something useful out of them, please do share through the social channels, and we'll be doing that ourselves. As I say, I want to thank Cormac, who's with us on screen there now, who's helping us with all of these from WSI. And then I'm going to hand over to Alison. So just to explain, myself and Alison go back a long way. We previously worked in a previous existence for an international BPO company called ICT Euratel a long time ago. And then Alison went off and traveled the world and worked in Australia for many years and is an expert in contact center management, has moved into the whole business coaching area, but has been involved in setting up remote working applications on a very large scale. So I know we're going to learn a lot from her this morning. And the purpose of this morning is really to have some hints and tips for all of us in terms of smart working, remote working, supporting our teams as they're remote and smart working. So as I say, if you can put a little, I can't see any messages coming up, but I don't know if that's just me, just to say you can all hear. Hopefully you can, but if you could just let us know in the chat box. And as we go through this, Alison is more than happy to take questions. So again, in the chat box, if you could put in any questions that you, or queries that you have, I'll be keeping an eye on those, and I'll let Alison know as they come about. Obviously, as I say, a recording of the webinar will be made available, as well as a copy of the presentation. So I'm going to hand over to Alison. Alison, thanks so much.
Okay, sorry, just to drop in with a quick comment, Alison, before you start. Dorothy, it looks like they're coming in under the questions panel there, and everyone is saying that they can see and hear fine.
Perfect.
So I think
I wasn't looking there. Brilliant.
Okay,
thanks,
super. Thanks, Cormac. And that's probably tip number one I would give, that when you're doing video conferencing, large ones like this, it's great to have one person who actually looks after the technical side, as well as having your buddy, which Dorothy is, just to come back with questions. So that means that I'm not looking at questions all the time, and I can really focus on getting the information to you guys. So welcome, everybody. As Dorothy said, we worked together. In fact, the first time we worked together was when I was managing the Guardian Direct Call Centre in the early 90s. So I'm aging myself there, Dorothy. So we go back a long way, and my background is call centres, but also I do executive coaching now. But before that, in Australia, I worked for quite a number of years in this whole area of flexible working as program manager for a large bank. We went to flexible working, allowing people to work whenever and however they wanted. And that was in 2009. And I also, since after that, supported other parts of the organization, but also other companies moving to flexible working. So I guess that is the first thing I would say to you, is there are lots of people who've been doing this for a long time, and that would include some of you. While it might not have been 100% working from home, as lots of you are doing now, there's lots of experience that you already have in flexible working. So the idea of this seminar was really to help managers to support their teams in flexible working. And again, I'll just go through the agenda with you, but before saying that, I would say that the vast majority of the management skills that you have will be equally as valuable in these times as they were before. So you're not starting from scratch, you're still bringing all that lovely knowledge and skills with you. Okay, so we're going to go through a couple of case studies, and we're all case studies now, which is quite interesting. And then we'll talk a little bit about what the behavioural perspective is about how we manage people through change, some discussion on tools and technologies, and then some ideas around what protocols you need in order to manage your team, and then maybe common challenges and how to meet them. Along the way, I'll be giving you tips. I'd love any questions or comments in the boxes, and we'll also be asking a few questions. Okay, let's start. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to ask you all to take a moment and write how you're feeling right now in the comments box. Just take a minute. Okay, Dorothy, are we getting anything back?
Just give me 1 sec just to pull it up. Sorry, Alison.
Okay.
I'm slow on the technology too. Yeah, I think people are doing good. I think they're anxious but hopeful, motivated, adjusting. Yeah, people.
Great.
People, yeah, I think a lot of people are just trying to get into this new way of working, and obviously people are concerned and anxious, as everybody.
So really the idea of this is really to then take a step back and go, so are these feelings understandable and reasonable now? And whether it's fear or excitement or, wanting to get on with things, they're all pretty reasonable and understandable. So, whatever you're feeling is what you're feeling. And it's good to check in on that for yourself. And to manage these feelings is important if you're managing people, manage your own emotions. So I'd say to you, what helps you manage your stress? And that might be reading a book, it might be doing a meditation, it might be doing some exercise, it might be cooking, whatever it is, identify it for yourself and try and put that into your day. It's important for us to self-care. And the other piece that I think is important is how can you set up boundaries for yourself? So when you're managing a team, if it's a really large team, even if it's a small team, what are the boundaries you're going to have for yourself around the time you're going to put in work, and the number of hours you might be prepared to work. Obviously, we know we have to be flexible at this time, but it is important that you check in around how you're managing your stress and your boundaries. So my number one check on is to do a daily check-in and put some stress relievers into your schedule. I think Dorothy's going to put out something around a self-care or a building resilience workshop that will be part of the community chat series later on. Okay, so let's talk about some case studies. So as I said, there are so many people who have been working remotely, and I'm not saying necessarily 100% from home, but have been working remotely for a long time. There's lots of people doing it and doing it successfully, like business consultants, home care workers, district nurses, CSO survey workers. They never meet. I had one quite recently here. They never meet. They all work remotely. We did a workshop 2 weeks ago with the CCMA on a similar subject, and there was a company called IDG, who you probably all know. They're a large outsourcer. They have a 100% remote quality team, supporting lots of different languages, and that's been up and running for, I think, Dorothy, I think it was a year. And they were telling us, you know, some of their tips, which I've included in this presentation, around how they manage that. And I guess their number one tip is, if you're going to be remote, even if you're going to manage a remote team, even if you're in the office with other people, you should always work the way the remote team are working with them. So in other words, if you're doing a video conference, you know, do it like we're doing it now, one-on-one, rather than putting 2 or 3 people in it who are in the office in a team and then everyone that's remote. It's just around fairness. And a company that I have done some work for is called Veldhoven & Co, and they're a Dutch company. They all work remotely. They have no offices. There's 50 staff across 4 continents. I think it's now 16 different countries, and they've been working this way for about 30 years. And I've garnered quite a lot of hints and tips from them as well. So based on the Irish census, there was 60,000 people who were working mainly, and that's almost exclusively from home in 2016. Our next census is 2021, but there's an estimate that it's probably around 100,000 now. But obviously now, right now at this moment in time, it's probably about 1 million people. And based on a pilot survey that the CSO have done for preparation for the 2021 survey, or census, I should say, 18% of people work from home some of the week, and that would equate to 400,000 people if extrapolated. And so that's the basis of what we're doing now, I guess, is because so many people were able to work from home for a day or two. So many companies had policies that the reality of it now is that, you know, a lot of companies have been able to move to work from home fairly seamlessly. Not easily, but fairly seamlessly. Okay, let's look at, you know, what is the situation when we're managing change. A lot of you may have seen this model before. It's a Kubler-Ross change model, and basically it's that piece around, you know, what are the stages of change. Some of you will remember that this actually also started off as the stages of grief, but it's now used very much in a change management perspective. So you start off saying, oh, it doesn't really affect me, or I'm not going to do it, and work through the whole way from being, you know, a bit angry that this is happening, then feeling like, oh God, I can't do this, to acceptance, to embrace. And what our job as managers is to support our people through this change. First of all, by acknowledging that this is something that people will be at different stages of this change model. And it's good for you to think about perhaps checking in with your people, sharing this with them and asking them where they are. You know, some of them are already at embrace, but the other piece that to remember is that it's not necessarily all one way. So you can be, as an individual, going, oh, I'm really enjoying this, it's a great opportunity, and really embracing it, and then something might happen and you might go right back to hopelessness. So it's really around diagnosing where you yourself are, but also the members of your team, and the way that you can support them in each stage. I'm giving you some tips there. On the stage, it should be stage 1 rather than stage 2, apologies. And that's really around, at the beginning, giving them information as much as you can, providing them people with information, and then giving them support. And that support, a lot of that support is around listening. And then you move into giving them some direction. Okay, this is where we're going. And then when they start to embrace it, it's really about encouraging them to flow. So, and assisting people through change. This is just a little model that probably some of you have used, and it's really, I guess, based on talking to your people and really checking in with them. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but it's very much around checking where they are now. Listen to them, really important to listen. Then when you are listening, to clarify and reframe and restate what they say, so by confirming what they're saying, you're both, know where you stand, and then asking them, encouraging them to find their own answers and their own actions, and then check in whether this is working for them. And just in the center there, what I'd encourage you all is just empathy for yourself and empathy for your team. So let's look at smart working. So what is smart working? We use it, we hear it being used all the time. And I think really, and this is something that I came across, and I think it's a good explanation. And really what it is, it's a conscious combination of 3 different elements to maximize the collaboration, productivity, engagement within your team. And those 3 things are place, or the physical, the virtual, and the behavioral. So 3 different sort of areas. And we're all sitting in each one of these all the time. And what we want is to get a sweet spot there in that Venn diagram in the center where it's all humming nicely. So these are the things I guess we need to be aware of when we're smart working. So on the physical side, again, okay, so we're all working from home, but that might mean different things to different members of your team, and it might mean different things to you too. So it might be good to think about for yourself how you create a workspace and what's going to work for you. Is going to work for you. I'm at my kitchen table right now. But for other people, maybe who've got lots of people in the house, that might not work. We've all seen people working from airing cupboards and all sorts of places, but anywhere where you can get some quiet. If that's what some people actually prefer, to work in an environment where there's noise going on. So I'm not saying you have to lock yourself away, but just be aware of creating a space for you. But also the other piece around that is for your people, for your team. If they're having issues around finding a space, because let's be aware, some of our younger people might be sharing apartments and they may not have a desk and they may not have somewhere where they can work easily from. And obviously people who've got kids, people who've got caring. So the place is something that, just touch base with your people on. Technology, we'll talk about in a moment, about what technology you're using as a team and you individually. And then the culture piece, the behavioral piece is really, this is where you can work with your team to say how you want to work together. And that will obviously also be linked into what your company culture is. Okay, just before I go on to tools, is there any questions coming through, Dorothy, that anybody has?
Nothing so far, Alison. If anybody has a question, just send it through there now, please.
Super. Okay, I'll go on to tools. Okay, so I can't tell you. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know you're going on to the next section, but just to prepare for sort of as we go further on, if people want to put in the questions panel, look, what's the most difficult thing they've found so far about working remotely or managing remote teams, put that in and we'll come back to it. We can just have it through there while you're talking.
Yeah. Okay, so on the technology side, there's lots of different people on this call, and what your company is mandating that you use or is supporting you to use will all be different. But let's just say there's lots of different options out there for using different tools to support your smart working. I think the important thing is to make sure that you're focused and working together to find the tools and not to have too many tools, because one of the things about tools, particularly around communication and written communication, is you got to get clear about what type of information you put on which tools. Otherwise, you could be looking in 5 different places for information that you may need in particular, say for customers. So just be clear around, you've already been using certain things for sharing information. So if you've got a learning management system, if you've got a system for CRM, those are still the things that you would use, and you'd still update those. So basically, I've just put in some of the different apps that are available, but I would double check that what your people are using in terms of, do they all have laptops? I mean, we just take it, We take it as given that they do, but they might not. Some of them might literally be working from their smartphones. What's their broadband like? Are they using a hotspot? Are they using a landline? So again, that'll for each member of your team. If you know that, then you're aware of what they are and aren't, what they can and can't do in terms of building team cohesion. So the other thing I'd say is the virtual file sharing. That's going to be pretty important as well. So you may, if you don't have access necessarily to all the shared files, this might be, for instance, if you're working on sort of projects and things like that, you might want to look at SharePoint or Google Docs. So again, I'm not trying to be prescriptive on what you use. It's just to say that there's lots of things out there, and your people will already be using stuff. But for instance, for video conferencing, I would encourage you to pick one and then you can all get good at one. Messaging apps, lots of different ones. Important to have something for informal chat as well. Okay, so selecting and using the tools. So just think about what you're using now. What are the company approved tools and apps? Do they work for your team? Does everyone have access to each tool, and are they proficient in its use? And what's missing in your toolkit, and how can you fill the gap? So my big tip here is, if you're not tech savvy, not everyone is, delegate the research to a team member who is. And this might be a great opportunity for someone who is really into technology to really take that on board and take responsibility for training the rest of your team on how to use the technology that you might want to use, like video conferencing. So it might be time for your digital natives to shine. So, okay, so behaviors for your team. So never forget that the number one way to ensure that people have good engagement, and the number one thing that also dictates whether people stay with you in your company, is their immediate line manager. So just to say that you're the best role model for the behaviors you want to see. And that means that you need to manage yourself first. Be gentle with yourself, be aware of your emotions, as we talked about earlier on. The second one is hard, but it'll free you, I promise, because I personally went through this. You really have to commit to believing in the efficacy of remote working, that it works, that you will find a way to make it work for your team. And the reason for this is because I don't know how many video conferencing calls I've been on in the last 2 weeks, but quite regularly people are saying, you know, sort of negative stuff about, oh, I wish we could all be together, or, you know, it's important to go on the front foot around it and commit yourself, challenge yourself to believe in it, because I can tell you that it's much easier to be working from a place of positivity. Okay, and positivity doesn't mean all rah rah rah. It doesn't mean, positivity doesn't mean that you know everything is going to turn out hunky dory. It just means that you know that whatever way things turn out, you'll be okay. That's my belief anyway. Okay, so be an advocate. Yeah.
I just chip in with a couple of comments and questions, and Joe has asked, is there a way of us sharing the comments and questions? So I know Cormac is having a look at that at the moment. I'm learning to go along, Joe, so apologies that I can't do it, but I know Maria, just when we asked about questions or concerns, she just mentioned workspace, and I know I listened to, when I was out for a walk yesterday afternoon, I listened to one of the radio shows, and they were saying that the tips are full of cars, people clearing out their sheds to get their office, their space ready for their home office. And I do appreciate that with people with children at home now, it can be very difficult to get a quiet space. So I know that's definitely a challenge for a lot of people. And then George has asked, how do you recommend engagement and collaboration continue without the opportunity to just walk over and have a chat as we did in the office? So I think that's a great question.
I'll come to that, because we're going to go through some communication tips. So I promise to come to that in the future.
Okay.
And I think that the workspace thing is important, but it's going to be very much individual to each person. And as a manager, I think what you need to do is you need to discuss it with your team. And if people don't have, you know, a space that they can work, or then maybe they only have a space that they can work particular times, well, then you need to try and build that in and work around it. Okay. So the other thing around behaviors and supporting people is the biggest driver, one of the biggest drivers is just building trust between each other. You can't see them, as you said, so you can't just go and tap them on the shoulder. So you need to start encouraging team members to organize their own work. Set clear expectations and outcomes of what you're going to do, what you're going to need from them. Encourage them to collaborate with each other, and I'll talk a little bit now about that. And working with them to agree how you're going to actually work together. Okay, so at the moment we are where we are with COVID-19, and how your teamwork needs to align, as it always has, with all these different things: your organisation, what's your values, strategies, purpose, and obviously your employment contract. In other words, what's the terms of their employment? These may be changing, but what I would say to you is you just need to keep them at the back of your head, and you need to make sure that you restate them. So as stuff comes out company-wide, talk through it with your team and be transparent with any company updates to let the information flow. It used to be that information was power. I think now it's sharing information that gives power. So people do need clarity of purpose. So why are we doing this? Why, with everything that's going on in the world, why is it important for us to do this? And it's important to talk to your team about that. So this is what I think is really going to help you in managing and supporting your team, to actually talk to them about what protocols are we going to work under. So those are around our behaviours, how we'll treat each other, how we're going to communicate with each other, how we're going to have meetings, how we're going to make sure that we have that engagement with the team, we continue to have it, and how we're going to deal with if we have new starters or more junior team members, or even just people who need some more support. These are tips that I would say with your junior team members. Buddy them up as you would perhaps in a physical environment, but buddy them up with more experienced members and encourage them to use chat to keep in touch with each other. Chat is wonderful for informal stuff. And ask people doing the same roles maybe to set up group chats to encourage collaboration with each other. So if you've got a large team, or if you're a manager who manages lots of teams, encourage a lot of informal discussion on chats around sharing information, sharing tips about how to do things, or allowing them to sort of come together and collaborate on how to get things done. So an example of, and I literally take this table and actually do it for your team and say, okay guys, this is for the team. What tool are we going to use for each type of meeting? How often are we going to have it, and how long is it going to be? The number one tip I would give to any manager is to have daily catch-ups with every team member. You need to do it by video or phone. You need to hear them or see them, not by text or email, because you need to be able to gauge how they are. Ask them how they're doing today, to try and keep it focused. And really all any of us can do at the moment is just go day by day. So how are you doing today? What support do you need now? And this keeps it focused on here and now. That's probably the most important thing to do with your people. I have a friend who works for, well, I'm not going to give the name of the company, but since this started, her manager has not actually contacted her, or has not called or VC'd her at all. And all she's been getting is text and email. And I can tell you from an emotional perspective, she is up the walls. And I really believe that, one phone call just would allow both of them to just, understand where each other are, because otherwise we tend to make assumptions about how other people are. And particularly if you're on your own, you start to make assumptions about that this is, personal, whereas in general, it might not be. Yeah. It probably won't be. Ron?
Alison, just to bounce in with a comment there, yeah. Because we have the same scenario where we're running remote teams, and what we have is a kind of like a daily huddle to keep everyone focused, right? But yeah. One of the things, because I think people are having good days and bad days right now, yes. So we've kind of introduced this concept of what's your traffic light color? So,
Great.
People might say that they are like a green, an orange, or a red, and it just lets everyone on the team know kind of where they're at, and they don't have to go into any detail about it, but at least everyone can gauge the mood and see where the energy levels are. So
that's a wonderful idea, and I think there's daily huddle is down later in the thing. I totally agree with you, and people are coming up with the most creative ways to catch up with each other. So it's important to have formal catch-ups, but it's also important to have those informal catch-ups. And I love the traffic light. Another one that I've heard around recently is, this idea of a secret friend, where basically you put people together in the team, and the best way I think is just to randomly do it, and basically the idea is that you ask people, okay, you've got your secret friend, I want you to support them, but in a way that they don't know that you're the secret friend. So it really helps to build this cohesion between people, and you can mix it up every week, and you can add yourself into the group too, so that you've got someone supporting you that you don't know about. At the end of the week, then you tell each other, you announce that you were the secret friend, and it's fun. It's very powerful. Another thing people are doing, and they're doing 5 minutes dancing a day. The thing here is talk to your team and ask them what will work for them, and mix it up.
And I think too, Alison, just add, it's important because in a work environment, and I obviously get to visit contact centres a lot, which is great. There is always an element of fun. So there's always an element of crack. We're all seeing these WhatsApps and jokes going around, and and obviously people are at different stages in this whole crisis. But I think to try and keep a little bit of that, just to keep spirits up in some way. And I know I've seen companies having everybody has a cup of coffee together at the same time.
Yes, exactly. A
little chat and catch up, and you've the personal as well as the business stuff, which is what you'd have in an office environment every day of the week anyway.
And another nice thing about that is if you do a daily coffee break, you might need to switch it up at different times, because you might have people working different hours, so try and ensure that as many people as possible can go. But also maybe to have, okay, we're not going to talk about work through it. We're going to, some people are doing little quizzes, or they might be doing, what are you doing with your kids? Anyone got any tips about, cooking, or any good books to read, or stuff like that?
I think the other thing, I think companies are doing like a book club type thing, that let's pick a book and we'll all read, and it's something to chat about that's completely away from our normal business discussions.
It's that piece around the thing that the question that was asked, or the comment that was made, how do you keep the social interaction going? So it's about being consciously doing it, but definitely ensuring that you do still do it. Now, I'm aware that I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm conscious of time too. Quick question: the normal measurement stats that companies would use in a contact center environment, what happens with those? Like things like net promoter score, all of that. Should that still all be going on in the background, or?
Yeah, I personally think if you have productivity or performance data, you should keep that, because the more that you can keep the same, the easier it is for people. And in general, if you're still using the same telephony systems and computer systems to support your people, you'll still have that data. I wouldn't change putting that data out at all.
Okay. Can I just ask?
The only thing I would say is that in terms of productivity and performance, I wouldn't get too caught up as if you haven't been doing that. In other words, if your way of managing your people's productivity was to walk around and say, how are you going? To start asking them to do daily timesheets and detailed reporting, it doesn't really foster trust. And I wouldn't seriously be thinking about asking for it. But what you can do is ask your people, how can we ensure that we're being as productive, and how can we ensure that we're monitoring where we're at, and ask them for ideas. And if they come up with the idea, or they agree with doing something like a timesheet, that's fine. But I wouldn't be trying to do too much, extra levels of control, when in reality, I think the better thing to do would be actually to open it up and ask people, how they can manage their own work.
Yeah, we've two more questions, and I'm conscious of time, so I know we've only a couple of minutes left. So Valerie from Zynga has asked, in relation to the secret friend, could you expand on how that works? How do you provide the support for the colleague? It sounds like a great idea, just curious about the logistics.
Yeah, so the thing here is, and I would encourage you that any ideas that you have, just see how it goes. So the idea of a secret friend is just like Secret Santa. You put the names in a hat, and you could just you could actually work with another manager of another team who was doing it, and you could put their names in a hat, and then you email them all out, or send in chat who their secret friend is. Okay, and the secret and there's nothing else any manager needs to do. It's the message is just, what we're going to do is try and support each other, and this week try and find ways to support your secret friend. And that might be by sending them a joke, It might be by asking them, do they need help in something? It might be by telephoning them. It might be like, be as creative as you want to be. And at the end of the week, we'll just say who the secret friend is. That's it.
It's very simple,
Okay.
very nice.
Yeah.
And then the others, and Valerie just said thanks. And Martina asked, any ideas on how to allow for connectivity issues which alters normal stats and reports? Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think there what you need to do is, obviously that's going to be specific to your particular scenario. So again, working as a team, maybe talk to your team and say, look, some people, I presume connectivity will also dictate the types of work that you individuals can do. So some people might not be able to answer telephones anymore. They might just be able to do email. They might just be able to do more support work rather than, live work with clients because of connectivity issues. So work with the team to say, okay, how can we manage this? Of course, it's going to impact your stats. It might, and it might even impact, your performance management pieces. And really you have to work through that either with your team, or say if it's a question of, say if it's a sales team and half your people can't actually make their sales calls or something, then what you have to do is you have to go back, look at what the impact is. So what's the impact on your productivity, and go back and discuss that with the more senior people. Okay, I'm going to try. I'm going to try and go through a few more things. I might not get to the end, but a few more tips for you, okay? There'll be a copy of these slides available to you, so you can go through the rest. Okay, so the next, so this is an interesting one. Waldo, nobody ever asked, everyone says where is he, but nobody asks how he is. And so I think the beautiful thing about remote working is we can ask your team members how they are, not just where they are. Okay, so communications. This is, again, different. What tools are you going to use and how often are you going to do it? And it's just talk about it, okay? Be careful of information overload. Agree what channel and tool you need for the different communication types, and it'll allow people to know where to look for easy access. I don't know about you, but I'm now using lots of different chats and messaging and email, and as a result, when I'm looking for something that I saw that I liked, it's quite hard to find it. So if you as a team agree, we're going to put all the informational stuff here, we're going to put the process stuff here, we're going to put customer stuff only here, so that you're not mixing it about. These are ideas about meeting protocols. Okay, so these are the things that, how are you going to manage your meetings? And that's, again, with your team. I'm not going to go through them all. And then these are the areas I think you need protocols for, and the stages are: discuss them with your team, adjust the behaviors and expectations you've agreed, have fun with them, experiment and change. So just because you agree something now, it doesn't mean you can't change it. So this is a time of change. So you may need to try, we're going to use this tool for this, and it doesn't work for everyone. You might want to change it. Okay. These are some of the challenges for supporting a remote team. Okay, and this is based on, I've done a lot of work with remote teams, and the biggest challenge is team cohesion. And then the other challenges are really important as well, which is around how do we keep people engaged and how you're managing productivity and performance. I think I've given you some tips on doing that. We have a poll that if you want to deal with any of these particular issues in more detail, we can do that. But what I would say to you is, go on.
So I was going to say, Cormac, we might run that poll now, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Sure, happy to do that. So we just kind of take 30 seconds to run it.
Yeah.
And just for everybody, that's just so we know where to focus our next series of webinars. So we're obviously pulling material together the whole time, but we want to make sure it's material that's of value to you. So you can see it.
So that should be launching on the screen now, Dorothy.
Right. Yeah, perfect. I can see it. So it's, if you could let us know which topic you would like us to include for future webinars, that'll be fantastic.
So what I'd say over that is one thing around these challenges is that I'd encourage you as managers is to talk to other managers who you're working with, so that you have some peer support happening, and they may have ways of tackling these challenges within your organization that you haven't thought of. So that peer support is important, and share. So you share your ideas as well, because each organization will find different ways of doing this.
Okay, just closing up the poll there, Dorothy. It looked like you know, the highest 68% was around engagement.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So we'll keep everybody posted on that. We'll come back to you on that.
That's super. I think you've already got an engagement one going, so that's good.
Yeah. Great. So we might just close out, Alison. Perfect.
Yeah.
I know you're.
Well,
Yeah.
just before you go, I just want to. Oh, sorry. I just want to say to people to take at least one idea from this webinar and implement it today. And you've got this. That's it, Dorothy.
Great. Thank you, Alison. I'll go back to my screen. So can I just say thank you so much to everybody. We had almost, oh, now I'm looking at my bad hair day here, so apologies. The frizz. So thank you so much to everybody for taking part. We had great participation, great numbers, really delighted with that. And thank you so much, Alison.
Not at all.
I think, as you say, if people only take one or two nuggets away from this, I absolutely, thanks Valerie. Valerie just said my hair is fabulous. But I absolutely think that Secret Santa idea, it's a really simple way of putting something in place that'll help everybody. I know Alison is available. Anybody want more information directly from her,
Absolutely,
just drop me an email.
yeah.
I can give her details. This recording is available. Please do pass it out and spread it to your colleagues and friends. And absolutely come back to us if there's anything that we're not covering that you think we should be doing a webinar on. Please let us know. I mentioned on the one, definitely I would recommend to everybody to download the mindfulness meditation that Mars did. It's really, really good. Brought me to tears. You'll see that at the end. We're also doing one on Friday this week, which is a colleague of Alison's, Maura Jenkinson Byrne, and that will be on self-care for you and your team. So again, that'll hopefully feed into the whole engagement agenda. And we have a couple of people that I'm already speaking to on things like Ask the Experts type panels that, again, we'll be putting them out and letting all members know. But as I say, these are not just for members, it's for anybody that you're working with in your network that you think might get some benefit. So I'll close out. Thank you as always to Cormac, as this one went so well, Cormac.
Always cross your fingers, Dorothy.
We've got this. We're all experts. And please, everybody, stay safe, wash your hands, and do take care. And we hope to see you all soon. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Dorothy. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.